no issue with trading Micah Parsons. It's just when and for how much was the issue. But now there's another whole part of this. Was the moment that CC said, well, his back could hurt. He could fake an injury without them ever being able to prove it. But now there actually may be an injury.
Picture this. You just traded 2 first-round picks and a 3-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle for the most dominant pass rusher in football. You're celebrating. Your fans are going crazy. You just made your new star the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history at $47 million a year. The man is getting paid more than Patrick Mahomes. And then, less than 48 hours later, news breaks that your shiny new toy might be broken. Or is he actually broken? Did the Dallas Cowboys just release this information just to appease their upset fan base? But what if I told you that's not even the craziest part of this story? What if I told you that the Dallas Cowboys actually offered Micah Parsons more money than what he got from Green Bay, and they still ended up trading him? Was it because of the injury issues? Guys, I know I said in my last video that I was going to do my final video on the topic, but the new news that we got in regards to this situation was so crazy that I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't bring you guys this update. So real quick, before we get to the content, I have some exciting news for you guys. If you happen to be a video editor that specializes in short form and TikTok style videos, we're looking to expand our short form content. And if you're interested in applying for a job, send an email to theflightmike@gmail.com with your best work, and you could be potentially making daily football content with me. And oh, one more thing. NFL season's around the corner, and Dak Prescott just needs 1 passing yard in order for his square to hit. Guys, you can sign up with my promo code Microphone to get a free $50 in lineups when you play $5 or more on Prize Picks. Once you get that, use $25 on this lineup here to make $131. I've already been making picks so I can snipe the best lines early on. And in this case, I'm pairing Dak Prescott to get 1 passing yard, which is a free square, with Kyren Williams getting a touchdown at any point and Justin Jefferson scoring a touchdown versus the Chicago Bears. On top of that, if you want more plays, I've created an incredible Discord community of experts in the WAP linked in the description down below. And thank you, Prize Picks, for today's sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Today we're gonna dive into what might be the most self-destructive move in Dallas Cowboys history, or maybe, just maybe, it could have been one of the most brilliant moves in Cowboys history. At the end of the day, we're not gonna know for sure until a couple of years from now. But by the end of this video, you're gonna understand how Jerry Jones's ego literally cost him a future Hall of Famer, how the injury news that came out afterward might have been the ultimate act of spite, and how the Green Bay Packers could have potentially been conned into the worst trade of the decade. And again, these are all different possibilities, and we're not gonna know for sure until the year plays out. So let's start out with what we already know. On Thursday, August 28th, 2025, your boy is in the final night of his Euro trip, and the Dallas Cowboys trade Micah Parsons to the Green Bay Packers. This isn't just any player that we're talking about. This is a guy who's been to the Pro Bowl in each of his first 4 seasons. This is a guy that's been compared to Lawrence Taylor. This is one of the most versatile, if not the most versatile, pass rusher in NFL history. He's one of only 2 players in NFL history, the other being Hall of Famer Reggie White, to record at least 12 sacks in each of their first 4 seasons. The dude had 52.5 sacks in 63 games. Literally video game numbers. And the Packers gave up their 2026 and 2027 first round picks, plus Kenny Clark, a 3-time Pro Bowler himself, to get this deal done. And immediately after, they made Micah Parsons the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history with a 4-year, $188 million deal with $136 million guaranteed. Immediately, Micah Parsons was celebrating. In his introductory press conference, it really didn't seem like Micah wanted to leave.
I never thought I'd be traded, but that's the harsh reality. I got kids, I got, a house, I got family that all moved down for me. And it's a change, right? I don't know what to expect. I never had seen anything outside of Dallas. And, Dallas is pretty nice itself. I wish things didn't have to be like this.
And Cowboy fans were shocked at how the entire Jones family said it was a unanimous decision, along with their head coach, Brian Schottenheimer, to trade their their best defensive player, or at least a top 3 defensive player that they've had since the turn of the new century.
Was it a unanimous decision to make this deal today?
Yes.
Who was involved in that process?
The representatives of the entire coaching, as well as our entire front office. I really do get huge input and dialogue and opinions from everybody in our organization, and this was unanimous.
Immediately, rumors started flying as to why the Cowboys would do this. There was a rumor that Micah Parsons' podcast frustrated the entire locker room. There were rumors that he was a diva. And I mean, you even had Cowboy teammates saying that Micah Parsons didn't seem fully locked in.
We're at work and the run game's terrible, but you're doing a podcast every week and you know the run game is terrible, then what are you really caring about?
But to be honest, as a Cowboy fan, I just felt like those were excuses, and this was the Dallas Cowboys just shooting themselves in the foot. And in my last video, I even included this take from Rachel Nichols that I've been saying repeatedly on my own YouTube channel. And I'm a firm believer that if the Cowboys were able to extend Micah Parsons, Dak Prescott, and CeeDee Lamb on time, they would have without a doubt been able to build a Super Bowl contender around this team.
If they first extended Dak when they could have, they would have saved $49 million. If they first extended CeeDee Lamb when they had the opportunity and what the market was, they would have saved $14 million. And if he had extended Micah last year when he did the Dak and CeeDee deals, he could have saved $36 million less than what Micah eventually signed for in Green Bay. And that all adds up to about $99 million you could have been paying other players.
This isn't anything new. I've said this repeatedly all the way back when Dak Prescott was getting a contract extension, when CeeDee Lamb was getting a contract extension, and I certainly meant it when it came time for Micah Parsons to get a contract extension. When you take a look at the entire locker room's reaction, I mean, look at Dak Prescott's reaction to Micah Parsons getting traded.
I definitely didn't think he was going to get traded, I'll say that. But just with the way that their negotiations went down, obviously, to some extent, I mean, hell, y'all were asking me questions, it seemed like it got personal on their ends.
Meanwhile, look at Rashawn Gary and how happy he is about Micah Parsons being his new teammate.
Like I said, adding a player like that, you know, it makes things a lot easier, and we got one hell of a player. Just looking at a couple reps that one had today, it's gonna be good.
So what ended up happening? Well, this brand new bombshell report from ESPN that is very, very long breaks down everything in regards to what happened behind the scenes. The title of the article is "The Pivotal Meeting That Led to One of the Most Shocking NFL Trades of the Past Decade." Here's where it gets messy. According to sources close to Jerry Jones, Micah Parsons asked for this meeting, and Jerry Jones thought it was about his contract. Parsons declared in February of 2024 that he wanted to be a Dallas Cowboy for life. They'd been meeting periodically over 4 years to discuss business and leadership issues. Jerry loved these conversations. He saw himself as a mentor to Micah Parsons. But sources close to Parsons tell a completely different story. They say Jones called Parsons in for a leadership meeting, only to steer the conversation toward contract talks. Parsons told Jerry to talk details with his agent, David Mulligetta. And here's what both sides agreed on. They talked numbers for 3 hours. They discussed years and guaranteed money. They were trying to reset the market for edge rushers, topping the $40 million per year average and $123.5 million guaranteed that Myles Garrett had gotten from Cleveland just 9 days earlier. And according to Jerry Jones, when Parsons left the office, they had a deal. But then Parsons did something that would change everything. Later that same day, he called Stephen Jones, Jerry's son, the Cowboys COO, and asked if we can do this. Can we change the numbers and up the guarantee? He started negotiating. He asked for several different elements and increases. This became a negotiation that Micah was in charge of. Stephen talked to his dad. Jerry agreed to the sweetened terms. And here's the kicker. The Cowboys allegedly offered more guaranteed money than what Parsons would eventually get from Green Bay. We're talking north of $150 million spread over 5 years instead of 4. So I know what you might be thinking. Wait, hold on, time out. The Cowboys offered more money and Parsons still ended up in Green Bay? How does that even happen? Well, if this report is true, it is consistent with what Jerry Jones told Michael Irvin.
I have agreed to give more money than has ever been given in terms of guaranteed money than anyone ever has as far as a defensive player. The agents told us to stick it up our ass.
So time out. The Dallas Cowboys offered more money, and Micah Parsons still ended up in Green Bay? How does that even happen? 2 words, David Mulligetta.
Was Jerry Jones accurate when he said offered to make Micah the highest paid non-quarterback? Was he honest when he said that?
I believe it was 40.5 was the offer, which would have made him at the time, from an APY standpoint, the highest paid. The way the cash flow was structured over his first 3 new years, he would not be paid as the highest paid player in the NFL. So again, that's why I say the devil's in the details. And another important part of the contract was a 4-year deal versus a 5-year deal, right? The difference between those two deals you're looking at could be possibly, $60-70 million when it's all said and done.
See, the Cowboys have this practice that they call hotboxing. No, not that type of hotboxing. Although, to be honest, it wouldn't really shock me. So hotboxing, at least in this particular case, is a term that refers to a team that directly negotiates with players without their agents present. It worked with Dak Prescott in 2024, kinda. Dak's agent Todd France came in after to negotiate the finer details, and Jerry thought the same thing would happen with Parsons. But Jerry made one crucial mistake. He basically pretended that David Mulugheta didn't exist. At the NFL Owners Spring Meeting on April 1st in Palm Beach, Jerry actually told the reporters, and I'm not making this up, that he didn't know David Mulugheta's name. He said, the agent is not a factor here, or something to worry about. Jerry would later say on Michael Irvin's podcast in August,
We had our agreements on term, guarantees, everything. We were going to send it over to the agent, and the agent said, don't bother because we've got all that to negotiate.
But here's the wild part. According to sources close to Micah, to this day, Parsons' agency has never seen the final details or structure of the deal that Jones claims he cut with Parsons in April. Jones and Mulugheta never truly negotiated at any point. Dallas would simply say the deal is done, Parsons can have it if he wants it. The source close to Jerry revealed his thought process. Oh, so that's how they're going to do it. Mike is going to negotiate with us. We're going to go up, we're going to have an agreement, and then the agent says that that's the floor and we're going to go from there. Jerry's response is, hell no, that's not the way that this is going to work. This was a gigantic war of egos. Fast forward to training camp, Parsons is a hold-in, showing up but not practicing. He's dealing with a back issue, but everyone knows that the real problem is the contract, or so we thought. The relationship is so poisoned that by late August, both sides want out. Friday rolls around and Parsons has his introductory press conference in Green Bay. He's wearing number 1, the first Packer to wear that number since Curly Lambeau back in 1926. He's saying all the right things.
I'm going to be here to win games, and I'm going to push these guys to do what we have to do to prove this organization was right about me.
Parsons himself addressed the injury at his Green Bay press conference, and his response was interesting. When asked about his back, he said,
I'm going to team up with the doctors, creating a plan. We already talked about how we can ramp things up and get me into a flow where they feel comfortable and I feel comfortable. My plan is to be here. They didn't give up what they gave up for me to sit on the sideline.
You notice the careful wording here, and this is where it gets a little interesting. He's not saying he's healthy, and he's not saying there's no injury. He's saying he's great and they'll formulate a plan. That's PR speak for,
yeah, there's something going on, but we're gonna figure it out.
And then on Monday morning, September 1st, just 3 days after the trade, 4 days before the season opener, Adam Schefter drops a bomb. Micah Parsons has been dealing with an L4/L5 facet joint sprain in his back, and he might need an epidural injection in order to play in week 1 versus the Lions, and so far he's not 100% guaranteed to play against the Lions in week 1. And if you think this is nothing, it certainly is something. Schefter's report included this little nugget here. Before trading Parsons last week, the Dallas Cowboys prescribed him a 5-day plan of an anti-inflammatory corticosteroid, a prednisone, to help him recover from back tightness. They also had him on a physical therapy program. So hold on, the Dallas Cowboys knew about this and they were treating it, and then they traded him for a massive haul? Now, before we go full conspiracy mode over here, let me tell you about what a facet joint sprain actually is, because there's been a lot of confusion about this. Dr. Brian Sutterer, who's become pretty well known for breaking down NFL injuries, jumped on Twitter to clarify some things. He explained that an epidural for disc or spinal canal issues is different from facet joint injections. What Parsons has, the facet joint sprain, is basically describing degenerative changes in those joints, which honestly isn't that uncommon in athletes who've been playing football their whole lives. Dr. Sutterer also pointed out something crucial. You don't just casually take an epidural injection before a game. It's done multiple days prior, under x-ray guidance by a specialist, and it takes multiple days to take effect. Plus, and this is the kicker, this is apparently super common in the NFL. Multiple players probably get those injections every single week, we just don't hear about it. When I originally got this news, a part of me was wondering if the Dallas Cowboys leaked this out or they try to put it out there just so they could appease their fan base who's clearly upset about this trade. I mean, I'm still really sad that we traded Micah Parsons. He was my favorite player on the team. But if you thought this was crazy or it could potentially be nothing, the Green Bay Packers apparently had no idea about this. So right after this news all broke, Polymarket Football dropped an absolute bomb on X that should have been the lead story everywhere. They reported, and I quote, "The Packers were not totally aware of a Micah Parsons facet joint sprain on his L4/L5 vertebrae when they passed him through his physical, approving the trade with Dallas." Let me repeat that. The Packers were not totally aware of this injury. The report goes on to say that if Parsons plays for the Packers in 2025, he will need regular epidurals according to doctors. Not just one, not just occasionally, regular epidurals. Now guys, I'm not gonna go out and automatically say that this trade skews in the favor of the Dallas Cowboys or the Green Bay Packers before Micah Parsons has even played a snap. Because honestly, this trade could go either way. This could be Jalen Ramsey to the Rams 2.0, where Micah Parsons becomes the missing piece and takes the Green Bay Packers to the Super Bowl. This could be Khalil Mack 2.0, where both teams were kind of losers as a result of the trade, except the Chicago Bears in year one. Or this could be Herschel Walker 2.0, where the Dallas Cowboys could legitimately set up a dynasty as a result of the extra draft capital that they received. It really could play out in any way, and obviously this trade was made by both sides because the Green Bay Packers thought they could win a Super Bowl, and the Dallas Cowboys are betting that Micah Parsons isn't going to be as good of a player for the Green Bay Packers as he was for them, and could potentially sabotage them, leading to them getting draft capital. I'm not saying one outlook is certain here. I'm saying what each team made this trade for. And even though I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, I would never root for a generational talent to get injured because that would just be terrible. Even though it benefits my favorite team, there's a human element here, obviously. But this explains why the Cowboys made this trade, because historically, the Dallas Cowboys never trade generational talent. The only other time I could think of them trading generational talent for picks was the Herschel Walker trade. Every other time, they would overpay to retain their talent. So think about what this means for a second. The Packers medical staff, one of the most respected in the league, somehow missed or wasn't informed about the full extent of a back injury that requires regular epidural injections. How does that even happen? There's only two explanations here, and neither one looks good. Option one is the Cowboys' medical information provided during the trade process was, let's just call it, incomplete. Maybe they mentioned some back tightness, some minor discomfort, but conveniently left out the part about needing regular needles in his spine just to play football. That's incredibly deceptive. And option two was the Packers' medical evaluation was rushed or inadequate. But come on, this is a $188 million investment. You're telling me they didn't do a thorough examination, they didn't ask the right questions, they didn't request full medical records? Something isn't adding up. So this is where we get to a conspiracy theory, obviously. Knowing what we know about how this negotiation went down, the timing of this injury news just hits different, doesn't it? Jerry Jones just got embarrassed on a national stage. His refusal to work with an agent cost him a generational talent. He's taking heat from every angle, and then suddenly, news leaks that Micah Parsons has been dealing with a back injury that might require regular epidural injections. Look at how specific the leak was. It included exactly what the Cowboys were doing to treat it. The prednisone, the physical therapy program. That's information that could only come from the Dallas Cowboys side. Back up with me and just think about the sequence of events here. First, Jerry Jones loses Parsons because of his ego. Then he trades him to Green Bay. Jerry would then make sure everyone knows about the injury after the trade is complete. And then it comes out that Green Bay wasn't fully aware of the extent of the injury. That's not just petty, that's potentially fraudulent. So what does this mean for the Green Bay Packers? Well, they're in a tough spot. They just made this guy the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. They gave up 2 first-round picks. They traded away Kenny Clark, who'd been with the organization for 9 years and was a cornerstone of their defense. If Micah Parsons isn't healthy, or if this back issue lingers, they could have potentially made one of the worst trades in NFL history. But here's the thing, and this is important, the Green Bay Packers aren't dumb. They gave Parsons a physical before completing the trade. So either they think it's not a big deal, or they're so confident in their medical staff that they believe they can manage it better than Dallas could. Brian Gutekunst, the Packers GM, has always been super careful about age and health. The guy's like the Leonardo DiCaprio of general managers. If you hit the age of 30, he's trading your ass out of Green Bay. I mean, they moved on from Devontae Adams around that age. They moved on from Kenny Clark around that age. They moved on from David Bakhtiari and Jair Alexander as they got older or dealt with injuries. The Packers never take risks on injured players, especially not for this kind of money. Meanwhile, the Cowboys, they're rolling with Dante Fowler Jr., a rookie in Donovan Izaraku, and Marshawn Nealon, who had 0 sacks last year. The Cowboys are willingly shipping out their best player, a 2-time All-Pro and a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year finalist in his first 4 seasons, in exchange for draft capital, leaving a massive hole in a defense that they built on the back of this star edge rusher. And I think this is what's so fascinating about this injury. And here's what nobody is talking about. Facet joint issues don't just go away. This isn't like a sprained ankle that heals up in a few weeks. This is potentially a chronic issue that Parsons will have to manage for the rest of his career. Those epidural injections are not a cure, they're pain management. We've seen this story before. A superstar with a nagging injury gets traded. The new team thinks they can fix it, and, well, sometimes it works out, and sometimes it doesn't. The Rams took a chance on Matthew Stafford's back and won a Super Bowl. The Broncos took a chance on Russell Wilson, and let's not talk about that. The Browns took a chance on Deshaun Watson despite the laundry list of allegations and his shoulder issues, and, well, let's just say that didn't work out so well either. The real test won't be week 1 against the Lions. It won't even be week 4 when Micah returns to Dallas. The real test will be week 10, week 14, when the season's wearing on and that back has taken hit after hit. Can Micah Parsons maintain his elite level of play through the grind of an NFL season with this injury? Can the Packers manage his workload without diminishing his impact? What's really interesting about this is the Cowboys received Kenny Clark in a trade, a guy who had one of his least productive seasons with only 1 sack. You know why? Because he played almost the entire season with a painful toe injury that he got in the season opener, and he needed surgery after the season. So the Cowboys pretty much traded a pass rusher with a back injury for a defensive tackle coming off of a foot surgery. And the Packers traded a defensive tackle coming off of foot surgery for a pass rusher with a back injury. It seems like both teams are gambling on their medical staffs to do better than the other team. So here's where we stand. And I don't want you guys to think that I'm a Cowboy fan just trying to cope with this trade, because it's information that I got and I truly thought it was fascinating, and I've outlined multiple things that could happen here. I'm not saying one thing is more certain than the other. I'm just trying to inform you guys about what's going down here. So here's where we stand. Either the Cowboys A, traded an injured player and somehow convinced the Packers to give up 2 first-round picks for him, which is really hard to believe because that would mean that Jerry Jones is one of the more brilliant negotiators that we've seen, and I can't imagine that because of how the last 3 contract discussions went down with the star players. Or the Packers are the biggest suckers. B, they lost Parsons because Jerry's ego wouldn't let him work with an agent, and then he leaked injury information afterward to save face and make it look like they got rid of damaged goods. C, knew about the injury, decided it was a long-term concern, and made the difficult but smart decision to trade Parsons while his value was still sky high, even though they'd offer him more money than Green Bay did. Or D, all the above. They lost him due to ego, knew about the injury, then deliberately leaked the information after the trade to control the narrative. Personally, if I had to choose after seeing all this new information, I think it's D. The Cowboys clearly knew about the back issue. They were treating it after all. They don't trade generational talent at all. I mean, we haven't seen a trade like this in more than 3 decades. They probably had concerns about paying a pass rusher with back problems $47 million a year because they just made Dak Prescott the highest paid player in the league and he immediately got injured. Jerry's expressed buyer's remorse about Dak Prescott's contract so many times, but even despite that, they were still willing to pay Micah north of $150 million until Jerry's ego got in the way. Once the relationship was poisoned, they found a trade partner willing to take the risk, got an absolute haul in return, and then made sure everyone knew about the injury so they didn't look like complete idiots for trading away a future Hall of Famer. It's just crazy because Jerry's out here claiming that we got what we wanted after the trade. Really, Jerry? You wanted to trade the best pass rusher you've had since DeMarcus Ware because you were too proud to talk to the agent? You wanted to potentially poison the well with other teams by not being fully transparent about injuries? The Cowboys have become a case study in how not to run an NFL franchise. They had Parsons in the building. They allegedly offered him more money than what he got from Green Bay, and they still lost him because Jerry Jones wanted to prove that he didn't need to deal with agents. I know there's a lot of moving parts here. There's a lot of new information here, and for those of you guys that want to understand why the Cowboys and Packers made this trade from a salary cap perspective and how this bodes for teams historically in this situation, because there have been other cases like this before, my last video on the topic does a remarkable job covering that. If you're a Packers and Cowboy fan, let me know what you guys think about this information in the comment section down below. I'm sure a lot of Packers fans are going to say it doesn't matter. A lot of Packers fans are probably just saying that Cowboy fans are huffing that copium. But at the end of the day, this was information that I needed to get out to you guys because I think it completely changes everything. So I'm going to leave my last video on the topic on your screen that you should definitely check out if you missed. And I'll meet you guys there. I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.